Assalamu alaikum and good evening to all, and a very warm welcome to everyone who has joined us on Zoom and those who are viewing us live on Facebook. Now, what is one thing everyone is concerned about nowadays? Is artificial intelligence a hype or more than a fad? Humans wouldn't have gotten very far without machines. From the wheel that brought revolution in agriculture to the robot-enabled assembly lines of today, machines have made life easier. But still, despite their endless utility, humans have long feared machines. More specifically, the possibility that automation might someday acquire human intelligence and strike out on their own. We tend to view the possibility of automation with fascination as well as fear. This curiosity has helped turn science fiction into actual science. In the recent months, artificial intelligence has gained significant attention, primarily due to the remarkable success of ChatGPT and its unprecedented user numbers. According to recent research, ChatGPT has 180 plus million users, and their website sees nearly 1.5 billion visitors per month. This has sparked discussions among people about the potential impact of AI and what lies ahead for us. Questions arise about job losses, the possibility of robots replacing humans in workplaces, the emergence of sentient AI, and even the concern of robots ruling over humans, perhaps influenced by Hollywood movies. Artificial intelligence has been around for quite some time now, and a lot of businesses are finding ways to incorporate it into their business processes. It is important to understand the concept of AI and RPA being technologies that are transforming every walk of life today. AI as a tool allows people to think about how to integrate information, how to analyze data, and use resulting insights to improve decision making. The pace and scale of technological innovation happening today is unprecedented, and those leveraging the AI and RPA are best positioned to take advantage of these advancements. That is the value of AI and RPA. If you get along with it, you get your license to the future. If you don't get along with it, you are more or less on the way to become a white dinosaur. And no one of us really wants to happen this. AI is overhyped for a lot of business users and buyers of products whose expectations have been set a little out of alignment with what is actually possible. On the other hand, it's underhyped too, because the capabilities of what is possible are significant. While most CEOs and CIOs understand that AI can boost productivity, simply deploying an AI tool doesn't guarantee greater efficiency or that the customer experience will be enhanced. And it certainly doesn't automatically translate into a fatter bottom line. So now let's explore it fully. Let's embark on discussion with our distinguished panelists as we have a lot to cover. We will be covering capabilities of AI and RPA, the essential skill sets for the future workforce, leveraging AI and RPA for big data, ensuring security and privacy of data in technological adoption, and gaining insights into the future of the work. I'm very excited as we are going to learn a lot from our eminent panelists today. I would start off with Mr. Faizan Irshad today to share his insights on potential of RPA. So, Faizan, as far as my research goes, the robotic process automation RPA market is predicted to reach a compound annual growth rate of 33%, hitting approximately $6 billion by 2025. Can you please elaborate which RPA tools are widely recognized and what is their significance and accessibility in the current technological landscape? We would love to hear about your rich experience in financial institutions and internal audit in this regard. Over to you, Faizan.
Thank you, Mema, and thank you, Ms. Khurshid, for giving me the opportunity to talk on this very critical topic of the current era, that is AI and robotic process automation. You have very rightly pointed out that the this AI and RPA market, particularly if we talk about RPA market, it is growing exponentially, and if the trend continues that you just highlighted, that is 33% annual growth. Just according to my calculation, it's going to be $66 billion about by 2032. So the question is why it's rising at that pace? Why the growth is so fast as compared to any other technologies? And in this, actually, the answer to this lies in your question, that what are the robotic process automation tools, famous tools? The reason for the growth is also that the tools have made the things easy for the users. Now, the automation, I'll be discussing about tools in my later part of the answer, but just talking about how the automation has been evolved over the time. So we all know that the automation actually has been in place since the invent of computers. Even if we talk about the invention of a simple calculator, that automated our routine, simple as well as complex calculations. So that was an automation back into the 1970s, if we talk about after the start of computers, actually. But the traditional automation, which evolved from the simple calculators to the complex softwares, accounting softwares, auditing softwares that we use in our field, they are actually the automation tools that automate our data collection, analysis, and visualization. So, but all that traditional automation required IT experts, and that also required that IT experts have to be in place for any updation into the software, and that also involves huge costs. So now the era of robotic process automation actually has changed that requirement. We don't need IT experts anymore. Why? Because we have the RPA tools, which are no code and are low code tools, and Madam Khurshid highlighted in her presentation also. The no code and low code is dominating the era. So there are very dozens of tools in this regard available for robotic process automation that do not require actually IT knowledge or this programmer's knowledge. I would name just a few here, like one is Microsoft Power Automate, another one is IBM Automation Anywhere, then is the UiPath, very famous tool, then is the Prism. So there are dozens of tools that are available, and each one of, I have used many of these tools actually, personally as well, and what I have noticed is that all of these tools do serve our required purpose. We can use any of these according to our liking. The choice, the reason to choose among any of the tools will depend upon what are the actually cost. Some of are free as well. Some free features are available, and some features are paid. Then, even if I specifically talk about the artificial intelligence, if we want to merge AI with robotic process automation, then there are paid features, but in any software. But the choice depends upon how they better integrate with the organization's data. But any of these can be used, and they are equally good at providing many of the solutions that we need. Now, coming about your question about how industries like financial institutions or the banks, as well as internal auditors, are using it. So, because as robotic process automation can automate any of the routine human tasks, I'm not talking about the intelligent automation as yet. It's just the robotic process automation that's taking robot out of the human. The tasks that do not require intelligent decision makings can easily be performed by the robots. So any of the tasks that organizations are performing are now being converted to robotic process automation. Like the financial institutions, banks, if I talk about the account statement provision, if a customer lodges a request for provision of account statement, that's a robot collects that request, goes to the bank's core banking system, extracts the report, extracts customer's account statement, and emails to the customers without involving any human. So this actually also ensures that the customer's data is not compromised. No human is involved in this whole process. It's just the customer and the robot talking to each other, and customer's confidential data is shared with the human. Similarly, if we talk about the systems integrations, one of the very good benefit of RPAs is that the systems which cannot be integrated from backend can be integrated through RPA. Like the regulators of State Bank or the other financial regulators are also have deployed many systems where banks and financial institutions have to report certain data. So what banks are doing instead of so because those are the regulated systems, those cannot be integrated with the bank's systems. So what the banks are doing, they are deploying a robot to extract data from its core banking system and to populate same data to the regulated systems like VBOC, if we talk about that's used in Pakistan for reporting of trade transactions. So there are endless opportunities. Whatever can be done without involving intelligence and involves computers can be done through robotic process automation. And if you talk about the even fintechs are using robot trading. Robot trading, what that basically involves intelligent automation by adding algorithms which make decisions on behalf of humans that which stocks and which commodities we have to invest at a very fast pace, and the robot then executes that transaction, that investment. So robot trading is expanding very fast nowadays. And even if we talk about the internal audit also, the tasks which are routine tasks, internal audit performs on daily basis, like data collection from systems and performing of certain analysis, generating of certain exceptions, and reporting those exceptions to its audit software. So these are actually being performed through the robotic process automation. So even MIS reporting can be done through a robotic process. And one of the very major benefit that we are also using is about the deployment of robotic process automation for continuous auditing. We deploy a robot to continuously extract data from this bank's core banking systems and central databases and perform the required analysis and report the exceptions to the auditee without involving any human. Of course, those exceptions are based on certain criteria and rules. So there are endless opportunities for using it, and they are evolving continuously, and we'll be sharing more thoughts on this in the upcoming session. Thank you.
I'm happy that you brought up the comparison between the traditional automation and the modern RPA tools. That's something that really matters for our audience today. So now it would be great for me to bring in our next panelist, a very distinguished panelist, Mr. Farzad Soonawala, who works for Microsoft, to talk about processes and benefits of automation. Mr. Farzad is a senior product manager at Microsoft, where he plays an instrumental role in leading the product design and execution of search and AI capabilities in Microsoft Azure. He is passionate about empowering individuals and organizations in creating cutting-edge experiences that revolutionize the way we interact with technology. Prior to joining Microsoft, Mr. Farzad held a variety of positions in engineering and product management at Chevron Corporation and holds a BS in petroleum engineering from Louisiana State University, accompanied by minors in computer science and technical sales. Additionally, he earned a Master of Engineering in Engineering Management from Cornell University. So, welcome, Farzad. Welcome, Farzad.
Hey.
My question to you would be about RPA. RPA can help your business thrive in a lot of ways, right? It can be applied to commercial, financial, support, and customer service functions of any business. But the success of RPA lies in the selection of right business processes, the right tasks, and the right activities to automate. So can you please enlighten us on what are the application areas of RPA where we can fully take advantage of RPA in business, and how? Over to you, Farzad.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, so I'll first kind of address the point of, what kind of processes are best suited for automation. And so I think we all kind of know RPA, the main business value proposition that you get is really streamlining operations across various departments and sectors. And so I think the first question that should be asked when thinking about, what's really best suited for automation is the criteria for selecting processes for this automation. And so I think it's important to discuss, rule-based, repetitive, high volume, and to some point low exception tasks, and really emphasize the importance of kind of the process standardization before actual automation. So you have a good understanding of the workflow that you actually plan to automate using RPA. Some of the key benefits that you see in using RPA in the business world. For example, Mr. Faizan talked about Microsoft Power Automate. I think it's an amazing tool and super easy to get started. I highly recommend using it for your RPA use cases. And so some of the benefits that we see, some of my customers use are probably the most important is just being cost savings. And these cost savings could be through, of course, increased efficiencies, reduced labor expenses. Instead of spending maybe, 8 hours doing a week on a certain job, RPA could maybe cut that down to maybe 1 hour or maybe even less. And so that's a lot of operational expense savings there. And then, of course, to some extent, even improved accuracy and consistency by eliminating human error. And so all humans are prone to mistakes, and so are AI models. But a lot of times AI models sometimes could actually outperform a human in a repetitive task by programming it in a certain way. And then also, just like mentioned before, enhancing like a kind of compliance and auditability through kind of consistent execution of digital trails. That's another, I think, big one we see. And then I think talk about application areas of RPA. There's different ones that I personally see and have witnessed is across one is just commercial functions. So this could be things like sales order processing, pricing and quotes automation, contract management, and kind of the financial functions of different companies, accounts payable, receivable, financial reporting and reconciliation, tax preparation. These are some big use cases that we see where RPA can definitely play a role in increasing efficiencies. Customer support functions. I think this is big. HR, offboarding, onboarding, IT, service desk, automation, inventory management. I think these are great things. And can now with kind of the chat GPT hype, chatbot for kind of first level customer inquiries, that is can leverage forms of RPA, and I think that's a really interesting and cool use case that I think adds a lot of value. So I wanted to share a few real examples that I see working for Microsoft and customers that have used kind of our technology, just to shed some information on different industries. So I'll kind of start with finance. So we have a lot of large banks that are actually employing RPA for loan processing, fraud detection, and compliance reporting. In the healthcare domain, we see hospitals actually using RPA to manage patient records, appointment scheduling, and there's another one, insurance claims processing. And then I think the last one I'll touch on over here is retail. So e-commerce platforms are automating order processing, customer support, and of course, just like I mentioned earlier, inventory management, a very manual kind of tedious process. RPA is a great technology solution to kind of solving a lot of these pain points. So to kind of conclude my answer, I think it's really important to just really focus on choosing the right processes for RPA to really maximize the benefits. And just like mentioned earlier, there's a lot of tools out there like Power Automate, Blue Prism, UiPath, to really get kickstarted in your kind of citizen RPA development process to really automate a lot of your workloads. So thank you.
Thank you, Farzad. Thank you so much for adding so much to our knowledge, especially about the great real-life examples of automation that really helps us all. And this is a good time to bring in someone who actually deals with AI day in and day out. We have Mr. Nabil Mirza with us. So Nabil, now here comes in the role of AI. RPA can handle repetitive tasks, right? While AI can bring in decision-making and analytical capabilities. I want you to enlighten us on how AI and robotics are interlinked and in what ways both technologies can be harmoniously integrated to yield desired outcomes. Can you touch upon the potential advancements and innovations that we can expect as AI and robotics continue to evolve and become more interconnected? Over to you, Debbie.
Thank you, Mama. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Actually, my distinguished panelists, Mr. Faizan and Mr. Farzad, have done an excellent job of actually identifying where the robotic process automation, the criteria where the robotic process automation is so good, and the different tools that can be used to implement robotic process automation. So now the question is that why to bring AI in the whole scheme of the things? And why is it needed so much? So the simple thing is that the RPA process is not designed to think. If anything changes in the system, like even if our data field change, or even if the locations where the data is stored is changed, or any other change in the end process, RPA actually cannot handle that change, until now. And it sort of falls through. So you continuously need someone to look after it. Whereas now the AI is now bringing in a holistic overview of the entire process. But before going into that, I just want to make it very simple to people understand what AI is. Our distinguished guest, Stephen, has very clearly highlighted that AI is not a thinking or conscious being, but then what really AI is. And without going into complex examples, I want to give you a very simple example. Traditionally, in software development, if you wanted to teach computer what a chair is, then what you had to do is to create a lot of rule-based descriptions, like something, it can have 3 legs, or it can have 4 legs, and it looks like this, it can have that much height, and all of those things. So you need to create 1,000 parameters or dimensions. That's what Stephen was meant when he was talking about higher dimensions. So you had to program it by giving it all the different features of a chair. That was a tedious process. This is still employed in traditional software engineering. But where AI came into being is that all the math has been done in 1950s. We were lacking computing power. Now with AI, what we can do by deploying these neural networks, which is basically a mathematical function, what we can do is that we can give it 1,000 pictures of what is a chair and 1,000 pictures of what is not a chair. Like even we can give it a dog, a cat, and a table. And what will it do is that by continuously going over these examples, which are fed in an understandable way, in a numerical way to the computer, it will actually start to develop that understanding, or we can label it as a thinking, as to what features it need to look for when it is trying to identify a chair, or to distinguish it from something that is not a chair. And that is where the real power is. So the data is such an important concept of this whole AI thing. So now, I hope I have made it more easier for our participant to understand where AI is. The power of decision making is coming from data, where it continuously processing that data and understanding its features, and that is learning those features without even human intervention. That's what we call a deep neural network, which functions like a human brain. That's where the similarity starts and ends, because it has got no consciousness. Now, how AI can improve the robotic process automation? The thing is that AI has got 2 very important capabilities. One is computer vision. Like my example, it can look, and the self-driving cars will be very, very much based on the computer vision. But also it has got a natural language processing capabilities, of which the ChatGPT is. I also specialize in natural language processing because I am very sort of fascinated by it, how it's learned. But honestly, at the back of end of it is just probabilistic models. It's just looking into the probability of what comes true. Now, because it has got machine vision, computer vision, and natural language processing, so what it can now do is that it can be built into an RPA process, and it can actually monitor that process throughout from end-to-end basis. And if it falls short anywhere, if it is falling down, the AI can basically intervene. It can make a decision that it will make based on the past behavior expected of the system. So what can happen is that it can prevent the RPA from falling down, and that is now leading to what we are calling an emergence of intelligence process automation, the key features of which are that it's going to automate complex and repetitive tasks, it's going to streamline end-to-end workflows, and it's going to augment human decision making. And just last thing that I want to highlight in there is that in order to make it more efficient, we need collaboration across various teams that are working on RPA, teams that are working on AI, and business users all working together so that we understand the requirement and bring this entire end-to-end automation into process. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nabil. Thank you so much. You made it clear as to where to use RPA and where to use AI and where to integrate both. I think this is sometimes a gray area for the finance and business professionals as well. So it helps really a lot. So here we go with our next question to Mr. Tabish Mushtaq. Tabish, I now want to ask you to try to paint a picture of future. Artificial intelligence and robotic processing are rapidly changing the accounting industry. While some fear that these technologies will replace human accountants, others see them as tools that can enhance the profession. How do you see AI and robotic processing impacting the accounting and auditing profession in the next, say, 5 to 10 years? What are some of the key trends in AI and RPA that are likely to impact the accounting profession and businesses in general in the coming years? Over to you, Tabish.
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you for the opportunity, Umama. Some great insights and some great inputs have been provided by the distinguished panelists and Khurshid and Stephen as well. This is very interesting because whatever has been discussed so far, it has all been built to the fact that, as I am going to talk about accounting and auditing, Nabil gave a really great view about how the machines think and how we are actually using the capabilities of RPA and artificial intelligence within the accounting and auditing industry. It is going to be a game changer. It already has in many ways. If you look at some of the accounting softwares out there, I would say Oracle inclusive, and some of the others which are there. I mean, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and RPAs have already been built into our process flows. Has that changed, or how has that impacted an accounting function? I mean, if you come to look at it, when I started my chartered accountancy, accounting profession was very different from what it is today. But I think we are taught resilience to actually learn and keep on, keep on the learning path to actually be aligned with what is happening. Who knew that I would get into technology after qualifying as chartered accountancy? So, I mean, that is how we evolve. In terms of going into the specifics of how it is, look, I mean, in terms of RPA, what we talked about in RPA and AI, we talked about automating repetitive tasks. So go back into the days of journal entries when we used to make vouchers and go into that. We got into the computer world. But today, a lot of the automated tasks in the accounting functions, as well as some of the ERPs that are doing, it is already recognizing, okay, it is matching your transaction with the classification of the transaction and recording it in your financial statements as well. Those sort of tasks are there. Yes, we have oversight whether those accounting entries or those finance transactions have been appropriately recorded or not. That has got the intelligence has not yet been brought in properly into these functions, where we say that there is a generative Gen AI has really gone into that. Because if you look into 5 to 10 years ahead, what I think is going to happen is that Gen AI, as things are progressing, because our life is a very different world since ChatGPT brought its tool in November 2022. And the conversation of AI has completely changed. In 5 to 10 years' time, when we talk about Gen AI, which means that the artificial intelligence models are going to develop its own content, and that is how it's happening at this point in time. So we talked about repetitive tasks, we talk about doing data analysis, we talk about doing variance analysis in Khurshid's presentation when it was there that the artificial intelligence and RPAs are going to do variance analysis of our management accounting and all of that. I think that is happening, and that is going to become more prevalent in very near future. What would be interesting is which I think is where we are heading to, is towards where our predictive functions are happening, financial forecast, financial modeling. Is artificial intelligence going to pick up all the assumptions that we build in our financial modeling, and is that going to build up a model as part of that? Today we need complex staff having great macro Excel capability to develop those models, or use some of the accounting softwares to actually develop those. I think artificial intelligence is going to pick up a lot of those tasks as part of that. Does that mean that it is going to significantly impact our accounting profession? Answer is yes. Does that mean that are we going to be worried about it? No. Industrial revolution took away jobs, new jobs came in. I think Faizan mentioned about, computers came in, and that was a time when things started changing. That's true, absolutely. But then we picked it up. So I think from an accounting and auditing profession perspective as well, yes, absolutely. It is going to change. The processes are going to change, which I'm just going to cover. But we need to upskill ourselves. We need to be aware of what it is, and we need to actually make sure that what Nabil mentioned was the data, the power of data is so much that computers are taking intelligent decisions, but they do not have the empathy. They do not have that thinking power to actually, where you actually talk about emotions and how to do that. And I think we bring that sort of insights as accountants, which I think we need to be aware of that. Things which are there in accounting profession, we talked about it. Within auditing, a classic example, we talk about risk assessment. We talk about developing our work papers, doing a lot of this manual intervention of developing working papers. We talked about having conversation with our stakeholders to actually develop the interview notes, and we type it. All of those things are going to be automated, but thinking power in terms of, if I was just looking at ChatGPT and I said, hey, can you give me what are the key risks which you see in the technology industry, and actually differentiate between Oracle and Microsoft while Farzad is there. I just asked this question, and the answer is very simple. It gave me a very accurate view of that. Why? Because the data is out there. When it comes to all the public data about what we actually disclose and what the 10K of Oracle and Microsoft is, that it has given me that insight. But how to analyze that data, how to use it, or how to actually think about it, these are the things which I think the human capabilities will be there, and it will remain. Some of the classic examples that I was also looking at within accounting and auditing profession is fraud detection. Some of the big four, Aisha may be aware as well, that some of the big four firms actually have brought in fraud detection tools, as well as us, technology companies as well. But within our profession, they are being used in auditing, and they are actually identifying pretty decent results in terms of the potential for fraud in the financial statements, and those have been detected. Things like continuous monitoring is also very important, because we have talked, continuous monitoring is a very classic 3 lines of defense, where we say that, hey, can internal audit actually develop a tool where we are continuously engaged with risk management functions and have a continuous monitoring process? Answer is that yes, when we go into AI and when we build these, our RPAs also tried to do that, but certainly it was not very successful. But when you bring AI and supported by RPA, then certainly we will actually come to a point where there will be a very good continuous monitoring process. Now, how to synthesize the data, how to look at it, how to work with management to develop the right processes so that we are very well protected and the risks are mitigated. I think that is where the skills need to be developed. That is where we need to understand that how to use that data, how to train our model, and how to actually feed our model with the right data, that when we get it, we are able to use it and develop it into and bake it into our processes to support the board of directors and management to develop those processes. Thank you.
Very true, Tabish. We talked about the trends, the future that we see in these areas. We need to start preparing for the future if we want to stay relevant and if we want to stay current. Thank you so very much. Now for the next piece, which is very important and very, very concerning as well. Ms. Aisha Bhavani is with us from PwC. Aisha, can you talk a little about what are some of the most significant challenges that accountants and auditors will face as AI and RPA become more prevalent in the industry? In the context of your experience with external audits, how can auditors ensure the accuracy of financial data in compliance with regulatory standards as well? Over to you, Aisha. Unmute yourself. We can't hear you. No, Aisha, we don't appear to hear you. No. I think can do something. I think your mic is muted, or there's something that you need to look from your end, because our IT is here and we can't do anything about this. Aisha, I think you can try logging in once again, and in the meantime, we move on to our next question. I would like to come back to Faizan. Now let's quickly move on to the skill sets required for the future. So Faizan, what are some of the key skills that finance and business professionals will need to develop to work effectively with AI and RPA?
Hi, can you hear me?
Okay, so Aisha, can we come back to you later?
Sure, come back later. I think my audio is working.
I started my question with Faizan. So,
yes, thank you, ma'am.
What level of knowledge and technological background is deemed necessary to attain expertise in AI and RPA? I think this is the right moment to talk on the courses and programs offered by the Digital Assurance and Accounting Board at ICAP as well to upskill the accountants. So can you please take this?
Yes, thank you. Sure. As far as that is very actually pertinent question. We have talked about the benefits of using AI and robotic process automation, and I don't think anyone would disagree that it's the must thing that we have to learn and we have to adopt. Now, question is how someone can learn it, or can we professional chartered accountants who have do not have any programming or coding knowledge, can we learn it, or we need some other assistant? First, I will just talk about what are the prerequisites to learn these skills. To learn robotic process automation and AI, the prerequisite skill that is required is actually the business understanding, the process understanding, the domain knowledge. That is where a new field, data sciences, have emerged, which has taken it away from IT experts and taken it to the business professionals. So in data sciences, what we study is that how a business expert, how a domain expert can perform the tasks that are required to be performed by some IT personnel by programming and coding. So the first and foremost important is the business process and understanding domain knowledge that we all have in our fields. So we fulfill this criteria to move on to the learning of this. Then what further skills are required to learn? To learn AI, I would say that the very important skill or knowledge is of understanding of mathematics and statistics. That is very critical and very much required for implementing any models. The mathematics that we studied in our college life, that was like calculus, linear algebra, and derivatives, integration, which we, by the way, didn't understand at that time that what is the purpose of our learning all these things. So those are all the skills and knowledge which is required to learn AI. Okay, and similarly, to statistics, probability, as Nabil has also mentioned, that it's a probabilistic model working on the back end. So probability and statistics, measures of dispersion, these knowledge, these concepts are very critical to learn any artificial intelligence model, to see how it functions, or to develop a model. Besides that, can our professional learn these skills? So I must say, I am here the example in front of everyone that who have learned these skills from being a chartered accountant. We have no programming or coding knowledge, and even I earned gold medal in my university in competition with all of the computer science and computer engineering students. So why was that? Because of the domain knowledge, process knowledge, or the business understanding, or the skills that we have otherwise learned during our CA training and CA studies. Those are actually a key advantage over over the other class fellows. And I also have written a research paper on use of like Tabi also shared about the use of AI for anomaly detection, fraud detection. So all these skills that I have got are without any previous knowledge, just the knowledge of mathematics, statistics, and after this, what we need to learn is Python. I would say there are other languages as well, R as well, but Python is easy to learn and easy to implement, because it's an open source and it has open libraries that we can adopt without writing all of the code. So it's very easy to learn. So we'll have to learn it ourselves. We can do it easily. We can do it. We just need to be focused and to give some time. With these skills and knowledge, we will be able to develop our own AI models, as well as to adopt, to implement our intelligence in our automation. So we can integrate both of the technologies as well. Now, coming to the second part of how DAB at ICAP is actually responding to this, I'm very happy to know, and Madam Khurshid also highlighted in the start, that DAB has conducted very useful sessions on data analytics trainings, and now is also going to it in a very sequential way, like from Power Query to Power BI, and then to Python and machine learning, and now it's moving on to the robotic process automation. So this is a sequence of steps which we need to learn to be able to survive in future, to be able to the future accountants. So I must encourage all of my fellows who are listening to me that it's the time to learn these skills, and ICAP is also providing very good opportunities for this learning. And there are also endless opportunities available, online learning material, a lot of material available. There is no shortage of that. So we need to gear up and we need to start learning it, and we can do it. We accountants, professionals, business professionals can do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Faizan. Thank you very much. Aisha, can we now come back to you?
Sure. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you very
Awesome.
well now. So I requested you to talk about some of the significant challenges that accountants and auditors will face in this era of technological advancement. And it would be good if you can talk about how can auditors ensure the accuracy of financial data and the compliance with regulatory standards.
Sure. Thank you, Mama, for that question. So I think I have a different perspective. I know we've heard from a lot of other folks on in this conversation who are more business focused, so to say, right? So AI, while definitely has a lot of real life use cases that can make finance functions and accounting functions so much more efficient and effective, what is important for us to appreciate is that as far as audit goes, or external audits go, where we are required to opine on a set of financial statements or the operating effectiveness of controls, we follow certain frameworks, right? We follow the framework that is defined by the regulator. The unfortunate bit is that as far as AI or the application of AI goes, our regulators are not there yet. Our regulators haven't developed either accounting standards or auditing, sorry, not accounting standards as much as auditing standards. They haven't developed auditing standards that determine how AI can be applied in an audit, right? So today, when you go into audit, you can't typically use an AI tool and say, you know what, I ran this data set through AI. These are the exceptions I noted, or everything is perfect. That's something you just cannot do only because we follow a reporting framework and an auditing framework, right? What our responsibility though is we do need to understand and help as ICAP, as members of other professional bodies, help the regulator come to how the business is evolving, right? So it will be a continuous journey, and it will be important stakeholders like all of us and professional bodies like the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Pakistan that will have a big role to play to ensure our regulators come along this technological journey with us. So that's one. The other thing that we also need to keep in mind is while a regulator is not there when it comes to the application of AI as far as audits go, our clients, the business community, the finance and accounting functions of various companies, they're using AI. They're using AI, they're using robotic process automation, right? And I'm going to focus first on AI, then I'm going to move on to robotic process automation because they're clearly very distinct. They do have interdependencies, but in and of themselves, they use different underlying technology. So our clients today might be using AI, right? How are they using AI? They're using AI, like somebody mentioned, they're using AI for customer success management, right? If a customer sends an email to your business and they're asking questions about, okay, when did you send the invoice? Can you send me XYZ? Do you have this product still in stock? Do you have this SKU still in stock? That's something you can automate through AI. There does not need to be an actual human being sitting in front of a desktop computer trying to wade through lots of data to come up with an answer, draft an email, and send that out. Right, so that's a very obvious use case of AI. Just because of the way it's designed, what it can do is it can go through large amounts of information at lightning speed, so to say, right? Far quicker than what we can typically do, and actually draft a simple email, right? So where there is simple stuff, AI can definitely step in, bridge that gap, and provide that answer very, very quickly, right? So AI definitely has a lot of real life applications, from evaluating historical data for sure, right? And even using the historical data as a benchmark to come up with predictions for the future, right? And I know that was one of the questions that was raised. So what AI typically does is, you know what, how do you typically come up with a forecast? A lot of you are finance and accounting professionals in the audience. You come up with a forecast, you'll say, you know what, if we have a seasonal business, our sales uptick in Q4, right? Because it's the holiday season, consumers are spending more, or typically people get their bonuses or whatever, right? And you use historical precedent to come up with an expectation about the future. If that's the data set that you're using to come up with an expectation of the future, AI is fully capable today of doing that, right? The predictive AI tools in the market today that can use historical data to come up with expectations about the future. So our clients are definitely using that. Finance and accounting professionals are going to be able to use that. I think the onus, as far as audit and regulatory bodies go, I do think there's still a journey to get there, right? We just need to make sure, as part of the dialogue that we have in this space, we make sure our regulators come along with us on this journey, right? When it comes to robotic process automation, I think it's a simpler argument. So robotic process automation, the way I'd like to think about it is I've used a lot of bots. I've developed bots. I've used a lot of bots in my day-to-day. A bot is very simple, right? There are applications like UiPath that are very intuitive, very easy to learn. There are obviously far more complicated bots out there as well, right? So I think one of the biggest misconceptions is when you think of a bot, you think of something like those of you who might have grown up, like I did, watching Jetsons, and you saw Rosie the robot, right? Rosie makes breakfast, Rosie puts Elroy to bed, Rosie cleans the house, cooks the food, right? So we're not there yet, right? We don't have Rosie the robot there today. What we do have a bot essentially is a fancy term for a set of instructions that can happen by themselves as long as you trigger it or set it up or program it a certain way, right? So for example, every day you open your laptop. When you open our laptop, typically you would open your browser, your internet browser. Maybe you have an application that where you fill out your time. So maybe you open that application. Maybe you work on Power BI, you work on Tableau, so you open that application, right? Let's say you open 4 or 5 applications every single day. You get up in the morning and you open those applications one by one, right? It takes time. The system boots, the system processes, the system loads. And while that happens, you really can't do anything. You could potentially program a bot, and that's a very simple bot that a lot of people today use, that can actually, when you get up in the morning at a certain time, let's say that 7:30 or 8 a.m., whatever that time is, it can actually kickstart your laptop and open all of those applications. So that by the time you get in front of your screen, those applications are already up and running. Right. So that's essentially a very simplistic use case of RPA. So RPA has a lot of real life applications. You can potentially think of any task that can be automated, right? So let's say you know, a lot of you are finance and accounting professionals. You get trial balance data and you use trial balance data to construct financial statements, right? Yes, a lot of companies use ERPs, but a lot of companies don't use complex ERPs. They actually make those financial statements themselves. You could potentially, and you know, there are certain steps to get there. You have an Excel download of data. You clean that data, right? You clean that data, you organize that data, you map that data into the relevant chart of accounts, and then you come up with a set of financial statements. Those steps are pretty routine, and you do that every month as part of your close procedures. If you follow a designated set of steps, you can totally program a bot to be able to do that for you. So think of bot like a very easy to use Excel macro, right? And the good thing about a bot is it's not limited just to Excel, and it's not as complicated as setting up as a macro is, and it's not limited by what a macro can or cannot do, right? So you can absolutely do anything at all. If it means drafting a message, your bot can actually do that, right? So we'll definitely touch a lot about a whole bunch of these topic areas as we progress in this discussion. But I just want to leave you with 2 things, right? Like a lot of folks on this panel mentioned, the world is evolving at a very at breakneck speed, as I'd like to call it, right? We definitely need to upskill ourselves. And upskilling might not necessarily take the form of actually going in and learning a machine language. Khurshid very rightly spoke of low-code alternatives. The future is low-code. You don't have to learn something. Like, you know, everybody doesn't need to be a data scientist. Everybody doesn't need to go and learn R and Python and SQL. What we do need to do, though, is we need to make sure that we understand the relevance of these applications. We understand how to use these low-code alternatives that are easy to use, intuitive to use, interactive, and actually come up with use cases, right? So let's say you make a reconciliation, you make a bank reconciliation every month, and all that you do in that bank reconciliation is you're making sure that your GL for your bank actually matches your bank statement, right? And you have a unique identifier that you're mapping things to. And sometimes you don't have that unique identifier, and you follow a certain steps to get there, to match the details together in order to come up with your reconciling items. You could totally program AI to do that, right? So AI will definitely get rid of the very low-hanging fruit, so to say, essentially anything that can be automated, anything that is predictive. So think of the 80-20 rule. 20% of the things are complicated, they're anomalous, they don't follow the trend, but 80% of things are very, very routine, right? They're predictable, they're expected, and that's something definitely which AI can step in and AI can take up, and you can automate, and those jobs will definitely take away. So your value will continue, you will continue to remain relevant in this space, right? Somebody spoke of tax audits in the question. You know what, when you come up with the tax audit, so I don't think, you know what, a lot of us pride ourselves, a lot of our education systems pride themselves in their ability to make students memorize things, right? That's no longer going to be a worthwhile skill in the future, right? You won't get brownie points or credits for remembering, let's say, tax law end to end and being able to quote sections and clauses from the top of your head. That's something a machine can do, and the machine can tell you, like, if you had a question, okay, I'm like to understand, I know what certain tax deductibles are for a certain industry. You can quickly ask a tool in simple English, and the tool should be able to tell you within a fraction of a second what that answer is, right? Where your knowledge will come in will be where you're dealing with a tax case that is unique, that requires judgment, that requires drawing analogies. While AI can definitely draw on past case law to predict outcomes for the future, as long as facts and circumstances are largely similar. However, when there are anomalies in that data set, that's where human beings come in. That's where you add value, right? So your value will be in the application of knowledge, to that 20%, to that anomalous data set, right? Because that's where AI will fail you, or that's where a process that largely is dependent on historical data sets will not be able to give you the outcome that you're looking for or the right outcome.
Asha, a very passionate and a very great insight for all the auditors out there. I'm so very happy you touched upon quite a few interesting things. And I noted one thing that the punchline was regulators need to come along with us on this journey. Thank you so much. With this, I would like to point my next question to Farzad. Farzad, can you quickly tell us how can finance and business professionals ensure that they remain relevant in a world where AI and RP are increasingly used in the industry? I mean, if you can talk about a little about the optimization of the use of Power Automate and Power BI.
Yeah, for sure. I'll definitely I'll go through this relatively quickly, but I think the main goal is really just to embrace the role of technology as a tool for empowerment rather than replacement. I see a lot of questions in the chat coming in, and I think that's like a high level strategy or theme across this entire panel or just digital technology in general to kind of embrace. So definitely continue to invest in professional development, just like how probably everyone on this call, if you're here, you probably are, to seek out to experts in this field, or people who have a desire to learn, and mentor and coach them as well, and keep on top of market industry trends. Some certifications are always good to add to your resume or CV, so you can explore things, of course, like more general, like of course, a CPA, certified IT professional, if that's something you think is going to boost your career. Of course, at Microsoft, we have certification exams for our technologies along with AI. So AZ900, Azure Fundamentals, or AI, I believe 900 for AI Fundamentals. Highly recommend checking those out. I think it's a great way to learn, as well as have a certification on your CV. And lastly, I think it's just really important to collaborate with your IT organization and other stakeholders and business units to really not just learn and grow, but to really align on a common purpose when you actually want to implement AI and RPA, especially once you have the gist of it and you want to start doing these things at scale. And so Power Automate and Power BI, as mentioned throughout this webinar, are two fantastic tools. It's probably in my opinion, one of Microsoft's most successful tools that have ever been deployed on the market. And I know a lot of you in ICAP on the digital team are getting involved with training. 100% agree. I think those are things that are extremely valuable. Fairly easy to use, and you could incorporate them into your day-to-day life, maybe help other people do it as well. So the best way of learning for me is learn by doing. So get your hands dirty, deploy AI solutions, RPA solutions, and make everyone's lives better.
That was great, Farzad. I think that's the key point. The Power BI and Power Automate, they are designed in such a way to be accessible for people even without specialized data knowledge. So that makes life easier for everyone. Thank you. Now, Nabil, it's now time to hear your perspective. This is also a key area where accountants, or you can say finance professionals, need to develop skills. How can intelligent process automation deliver robust controls from accounting and audit point of view to prevent fraud and error? Can you share any success stories or case studies where intelligent process automation significantly improved controls in accounting and audit, leading to prevention of fraud and errors? Over to you, Nabil.
Thank you, Mama. Just before I touch the main topic, I really enjoyed the discussion about the skill set part, where we are seeing, Faizan gave his example. My example is very much closer to Faizan. I'm a qualified chartered accountant, but then actually decided to delve deep into artificial intelligence programming language. And then there's a thought that you only need to learn for certain tools. I would also say that I will also like to add one dynamic into it is a state of playfulness. We learn most when we are playing. That's how we used to learn so much in our childhood without even making much effort, actually. The learning was such an effortless task. As we grow being into human, we actually make our learning difficult by focusing too much on the outcome and not enjoying the part of the process. I would say that, anyone who is listening, who are the participant, I would highly advise them go to, as I affectionately call, YouTube University. Just type in simple Python and just see what they are doing. And just try to see, what I do in Excel, can I do it in Python? Don't do it in your office, but just try to do it, be a failure, and just learn to play with it. I think the state of playfulness is very important, and I've seen some great examples that people without having technical backgrounds have been so successful in their journey because they deployed their state of playfulness. So that is what my key message when learning comes is that be playful, be like a child, and don't be shy from experimenting, and you will go a long way, because knowledge is so abundant, you don't even have to spend so much money, most of it is now free, honestly. The other thing is that, and coming to your main question, I actually want to highlight a case study, and I hope it will make people more interested in my answer, is that there's a very interesting book called Smart Business by a guy named Ming Zing, and I was blown away by his whole analysis of Alibaba Group. The Smart Business is about the analysis of Alibaba Group. Alibaba Group is nothing like we have seen anywhere. Alibaba Group is, I used to think it was like a copy of Amazon or eBay. Alibaba is totally different. They did something using technology, data, and artificial intelligence for China that no one else could have dreamt of. China was deficient in infrastructure. You could not have an e-commerce business in early 2000 in China because simply the delivery networks were not available. So what they did was that as they were collecting more and more data, they start using artificial intelligence to process that data. And I'm going to come back to it from auditing and accounting control point of view. But they start using more and more artificial intelligence as a decision pointers for that data. And then they started to open that data to a lot of, industries like the delivery companies, and what that meant was that by understanding the average cost involved in a delivery, time, number of shake hands involved, they were able to spring up a huge infrastructure development in China. They have done to China that no other company has done. Amazon and eBay were fortunate because America already had roll, parcel, and other infrastructure ready. They use data in a very different form. Alibaba Group used data really for customer empowerment and Chinese development. It's an amazing story, I would highly recommend this book to anyone. Now, coming to this main question about auditing and accounting environment, Alibaba Group has a subsidiary called Ant Financials. It's now one of the largest financial services company in the world. Now, Ant Financial had a huge problem. China does not have the credit rating that is so bad and butter of financial services industry in West. It means that they cannot go and check Nabil Mirza credit score and decide whether Nabil can get a loan or not. What they did was that they start monitoring customer buying and selling transaction and start giving them small loans. And based on that, they start collecting a lot of their data. That data was then fed back into decision engines to grant loans, small businesses loans, transactional loans. Now, if you are an auditor, that facilitated hundreds and billions of dollars of trading on Alibaba platform. In 2001, 2011, Alibaba had, that 11 November single day sale. That was just 1 billion. Now it's into hundreds of billion. That's how successful they were, So if you're an auditor and you say that, I want to go and audit your credit department, how I'm going to do that? Now you have a problem. You have a problem that the models are making all of these decisions on a real-time basis. What as an auditor can you do? Your thing is what we call test environment, control environment. You need to start understanding what are the parameters, what are the trainings, and what are the validations that are being carried out. When using and deploying those models, how much how rigorously those models have been tested and how much their verification has been done. And then you need to start tracing it back to your financial numbers. And then loss have been booking into the past, and what are the trends in those loan losses? And already have all the requirement in that.
Okay, Nabil. I think we are having some internet problems from your side. Your voice was not very clear. So I think you have already picked up all the key points to keep the communication short. Let's now move on to next question. Thank you so much for your insight. And Aisha, if you can quickly take this because time is running up. Aisha, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you quickly tell us something about in the context of big data? How essential is the utilization of AI and RPA, and what role do they play? With the accessibility of these advanced automation tools, how can accountants use data analytics to provide valuable insights for informed decision making within their organization?
Sure. No, that's a very good question, Omema. So I think, big data has been a buzzword for the longest amount of time, right? We've all talked about it. And big data, I think if I were to put it simply, it's essentially, and I'd love to quote this example. When I started out as an auditor 12 years ago in Ferguson, Karachi, and we used to go to a client, and Khurshid used to be a controller, and I used to be super scared of her. Anyway, that's beside the point. We used to ask for a list of invoices for to test sales, right? And all we got was a list of invoices. We got invoices on an Excel document. It listed down the invoice reference, and that's it. 10 invoices. If I'd asked for, I'd get 10 invoices, right? The world has evolved a lot since then. You know what? If I want to test revenue, I don't get those 10 invoices. I actually get a very, very large data dump. And I call it a data dump because, you know what? It's just a dump. It's got thousands and thousands and thousands of rows, potentially not being able to fit in Excel. And the client, if you're talking about large multi-billion-dollar conglomerates, that data will be broken out for separate files for each month and for each SKU because the data is so large, right? And it runs into hundreds of columns, right? So think about multiples of thousands of rows, hundreds, if not thousands of columns, right? So it's a lot of information that data is telling us. If I were to put blinders on, and I think that's what we are doing as a profession, we put blinders on, we'll say, you know what, I'm going to look at 10 invoices. Give me 10 invoices, I'll match the invoice with the PO and, whatever good things that we all are so accustomed to doing, and I'll make sure the sale is accurate. However, that data is actually telling us a story. And where these tools and where AI comes in, and I'll speak less about AI and more about automation tools, right? Somebody spoke of Power BI. Power BI, for those of us who are not familiar with it, is essentially a tool that is able to handle a very, very large data set, right? So if I want to analyze data, what I used to do in the good old days was I would go to Excel and run a pivot on that data, right? And I would play around with the pivot. I would say, okay, you know what? Let's add this column and let's add this row and let's put this filter on, blah, blah, blah. I can actually run that data set through a Tableau or a Power BI dashboard without the limitations of volume and magnitude of that data, right? So those tools are super impressive. They don't really have limitations around, okay, data cannot exceed, let's say 60,000 lines or 70,000 lines. Those tools can actually pick up a large data set and you can actually visualize that data, right? What is data visualization? Data visualization can actually tell me, you know what, through the combined power of tools like Alteryx, through the combined power of Power BI, through the combined power of AI, what that tools can actually tell me if I put sales data into a system is which geographic location has the highest amount of sales. It can tell me which person is earning the most commission from which customer, from which market, at what point in time is he making the most amount of sales, which is the SKU that is generating the largest volume of sales, right? It can tell me so much information that can help me isolate my risk. So while that risk assessment, at least as far as AI is concerned, I can't really use that because, like I said, my regulator is not on board with that yet. However, I can use that as a business to make informed decision making. Right. If I have all of that data, if I have a data stamp, like, you know what, you have all of these spice mixes that go out into the market. If you knew the actual area or the actual neighborhood or the actual demographic or the ethnicity that likes a certain flavor of a certain spice, when you do advertising, instead of putting a massive billboard on, let's say, main Shara FSL that everybody can look at, it's not a targeted piece of advertising. You can use that data, which tells you what ethnicity and demographic and subgroup and age. You can have very targeted ads catered to that particular subgroup that will actually generate the revenue for you. Right. So that's the power of big data. What big data essentially is, it's large volumes of data. Run that through a system to derive insights. And once you have those insights, what you do with those insights is that you make informed decisions. And those informed decisions are, it does not make sense to run an ad, let's say, throughout the year when you know you will only sell this product in this certain month at this particular time of the day. Right? So the world's your oyster. You can actually almost go anywhere with the power of data. It's just your ability to analyze the story that data is telling you, right? And that's where our skills come in. That's where your business acumen and your technical acumen comes in, when you're able to take that data and slice and dice it and look at it in so many different ways to actually understand the value it has.
So much, Aisha. That was great to listen. Oh, okay. So to the audience out there, thank you for being so participative and pouring in so much questions. We'll try to take in as many as the time allows us. Now, just the last question we want to put to Tavish, because this is a very key area without which our topic will not be completed. So Tavish, can you quickly tell us about the risks of AI and RPA? Because we have talked a lot about the benefits of AI and RPA, but the key risks, especially in the context of data privacy and data security, need to be covered. What factors should we be aware of while adopting the latest AI and RPA technologies? You can talk about firewalls or anything that you want to share with us.
Sure, thank you. And I am conscious of the time, and I did mention, but actually just now, Aisha mentioned something and I was thinking, oh, wow. She talked about online advertising. She talked about targeted advertising. And actually, I must tell you that this is the power, and that's absolutely right. But that comes with a myriad of risks as well. So if you have a business that is doing that, so you talked about privacy, think about the fact that if I'm using Yahoo, and I'm actually getting the fact that I bought a fleece yesterday, and I'm actually getting a lot of other fleece advertisement, as much good that is, have I given consent for my data to be used for that purpose? So that's one of the examples that is there. So I think what I would like to talk about when it comes to risk is basically classify that across two things. You talked about privacy, you talked about firewalls, and basically let's classify that around regulatory risks and the security risks. But the foundational element of that is data. So when we were hit with ChatGPT last year, AI has been on the horizon for a long time, and it has been existing for some time. Why suddenly AI has built up and why it has blown out? The reason is very simple. The amount of data that is being processed by the machine is astronomically high. So that means that suddenly the compute power, the processing power for the data has increased astronomically, and then you have a model that is scraping the whole of internet within a matter of seconds and giving you the results as coming out of it, and then you are actually generating new content of that. So what are the risks that come with it? The risks that come with it from a data perspective is data accuracy, data quality. The reality is that some of the vendors actually, when you talk about some of the public models, there are ongoing litigations out there, because what they are saying is, how have you trained your data on my data? How have you trained your model on my data without my consent? How have you trained your model on any data which is there? And what is the quality of that data? So the data management piece of a model is going to remain relevant, and it's going to be extremely important. Some of the other risks, before I go into regulatory and security element, I have covered that in the previous presentation on ICAP, is about model hallucination. As much as AI, generative AI is very great, the reality is the hallucinated model can produce its own content. And there are case studies out there where in one of the legal cases, one of the lawyers actually asked the model, hey, can you give me some of the legal cases on a certain matter? And the model gave an example of that was quoted. And the reality was there was no real data behind it. The model was hallucinating. It was making up. So that is a very, very critical element. The quality of data, the training of the model, bias, algorithm bias is also an extremely important aspect, because as it's like a human being, what we are trying to say is that the model is thinking like a human being. So if you come to it, we all have biases as human beings. So with the matter of time, the model will develop a bias as well. So what processes have you implemented to ensure that your model is reviewed, the algorithms are reviewed, and we ensure that the model has not developed a bias by consistently training and consistently testing the data? Now, moving on to regulatory and security in the interest of time, because we can actually spend hours on this. Regulatory landscape. The reality is, I think if anybody who is following AI, they would be reading about AI governance day in and day out. Previously, we learned about GDPR. And we said in 2018, GDPR came out because the reality was that the EU actually thought of the fact that they developed a benchmark privacy law on the basis of which the others have built up, and Brazil have built up their LGPD and all the other regulations, but we call GDPR as a benchmark model. I recently moved to US. I was actually working in the UK and developed the whole GDPR standpoint when I was in the UK for the longest of my career. And now having been exposed to other privacy laws across the globe, absolutely GDPR actually forms the benchmark, and the others are building, or the others are aligned to it, or maybe they are less stringent. But when it comes to AI governance, you must have seen that suddenly, even in the US, the privacy laws and the AI laws, which is a very commercial market, everybody is thinking about the fact that how can we develop AI ethics? How can we develop the right governance model? And as organizations are going to use AI, it is extremely important that they need to start by thinking, how do we develop governance over AI? We can't just develop a model and just do that. We need to have, how are we ensuring there is going to be the right data? Who the data is coming from? Are the vendors trustworthy who are actually doing that? Have they maintained the right consent and security mechanism of the data before I use any of the external data? Internal data, if I'm using it, am I actually using it appropriately and for the right reasons? Am I testing the model on an ongoing basis? And do I have the legal basis to actually process that data? If I am using Nabil's data, for example, I have to make sure that I get the right consent. So I think these are the regulatory aspect. And then when it comes to AI is going to use that algorithm, it's a black box at the end of the day. How that black box is going to work and use my data, it's very important that I have got the right basis and the regulatory framework aligned with my contracts are aligned to that to ensure I use that data. Finally, when it comes to security, it is extremely critical from an information security perspective about the data encryption. I make sure that bots are adequately secured and there is no tampering on the algorithm. I need to ensure that the access controls are maintained on the models. I need to ensure that the algorithms are appropriately protected. I need to ensure that I do my scanning on a regular basis. I patch my system on a regular basis. These are all very critical IT controls, because if where my algorithm is residing, if I am not protecting my infrastructure, then I am opening up my model for tampering, which could have a direct impact on the results of this. And it is a risk for the organization as well, right? Because at the end of the day, we have to protect our infrastructure for doing that. So I think these are the key ones that we can go a lot into detail, but I'm also conscious of the time that we have to do that. But these are some of the very key details that we need to consider. Data management, regulatory compliance, information security controls. These are the very three critical elements that we need to consider as we are looking into the security and regulatory compliance of the data and our models.
Thank you for your great insights. To the audience, your questions have mostly been answered by our panelists during their talks and in the chat box as well. If you still feel that there are some queries left, you can direct them to us. In the interest of time, we are now wrapping up this panel discussion. So the key takeaway is that embracing technology not only improves your day-to-day operations, but also ensures your relevance and competence. Robotics is seen as an enhancement to the accounting profession, not a threat. With proper usage and training, this digital transformation improves productivity and efficiency while maintaining the role of accountants in the organization. Finance professionals and business professionals will need to adapt and acquire new skills to thrive during this digital revolution. Change is inevitable. It is something forced upon us. I think the challenge all of us as business leaders and the audience out there need to make a call for themselves and their organizations. Now the question is, would you wait for the change to be forced upon you, or would you lead the change, embrace the change, and do it as a choice? That's up to you. With that, let's wrap up this panel discussion. Once again, I would like to thank the Digital Assurance and Accounting Board and ICAP for providing us the opportunity to bring this panel today. I hope audience found the insights insightful and they have learned and will apply it. Thank you so very much to all the panelists for your great insights. And thank you, audience, for your participation. I thoroughly enjoyed conducting this. Thank you.